Well, it's Friday again, and here we are. It's the 31st of October, Halloween Eve. Hope you're all ready for that. You got your candy in bowls ready to put out for the kids. Put some lights on, make sure everything's good in your neighborhood. But we're going to get into what's been going on in the last week in the antique and auction and Asian art world. There has been a lot going on, as you'll know. If you've been paying attention, you'll see that there's been a slew of auctions. Obviously, we've been talking about them. They've come up over in the UK and Ireland and Scotland, and we're going to get to a few more of these sales on the back end of this video. We're going to first talk about some results from this past week and talk about some upcoming lots because a whole bunch of auctions have popped up in the last few days here in the U.S. as well. Some very good China trade pieces are coming up. There's a great rug auction that's come on in the last couple of days over in Germany I want to talk about. And that's happening at Rippon Boswell, a great little auction, a great big auction house, we should say. It's been around for a long time. But there's some very good results, and the market seems very resilient. And the China trade porcelain also seems to be doing quite well. And we're going to start with this. This is the sale. These are the garniture pieces, for example, that sold up at Stair Gallery on, let's see, this was a couple of days ago on the 30th, yesterday. And they had a good sale. They had some very nice garniture sets. They had a big pair of jars that did quite well, brought around $3,500. They had several sets of these three-piece garnitures. These are originally five-piece, just so you know, and there would have been three of the tall, thin ones here in the middle, and then these two. So there would have been typically a set of five, but they often get broken, they get damaged, they get split up, they get turned into table lamps over the years, and sometimes you end up with the three. But these were very fine examples. These had that wonderful, what they call chicken skin ground, those little dots, raised dots onto the porcelain. That elevated them to a higher level of product. And I don't think the price was crazy for these at all. They are typically, let's see, how big are these? Typically they're about 9.5 inches tall. They appeared to be in quite good condition. They had an estimate of $1,000 to $1,500. They ended up selling for $1,900 plus the premium. Remember, Live Auctioneers does not show the buyer's premium in the final price. It just shows the hammer price. So you always have to add in 30% on top of that to get the full purchase price because the auction house adds a commission on. So these would have come in at around, roughly, Stair has a fairly steep buyer's premium. It's 36%. Which I think is a little crazy. And it's 31% if you buy on their website. That's why I always say, bid through the website of the auction house. You'll always save money on their buyer's premium, at least typically around 5%, 4 to 5%, depending on who they are. But that's sort of the range. So these would have been going out the door for around $2,700 for the set, $2,600. But I think that's fine. They're very nice. They're beautiful examples. And there were several in the sale. So they all did great. And then over to this. This was that wonderful horse screen. I sort of went on about this last week because I thought it was so beautiful. I just thought it was such an evocative scene. The horses are wonderfully done. It was an Edo period screen, at least, maybe a little older. I mean, 18th century Edo period, maybe a little earlier, maybe late 17th century of these horses with attendants and so forth, the wild horses. Just an absolutely charming screen. And this was a big screen, as I pointed out last week, a pair of screens rather. They're over 5.5, 6 feet tall. They're big screens. And these did really well. The estimate was $4,000 to $6,000, which I didn't think at all was unreasonable when we reviewed them or previewed them last week. And I thought, you get these two in a room, you could make two walls look awfully nice in a big room, and because you can hang them, of course. And they ended up going for around $30,000, including the buyer's premium. Roughly 29,000, well above their estimate, which is not a big surprise because they were so beautiful and wonderfully done, very tasteful, and somebody's going to love them for a long time, I hope. They're absolutely great. And then over to this was the Akiba sale that happened on the 28th. This was the Mark Wahlberg collection. And overall, I think the sale did really well. I think it was a very good sale. And Akiba did the right thing in this, and it was a smart move. They put this auction up, as you recall. I did a preview video on it several weeks ago because they got their sale up early. And I can't emphasize how important that is, especially on the internet. If you're thinking of consigning to an auction, auction house, don't consign to any auction house that doesn't have the stuff up at least, at the bare minimum, 3 weeks prior to the sale. 4 weeks is good. 5 weeks is even better because the longer it's up, the more eyeballs see it. If you put a short window in there, it doesn't get picked up the way the items don't get picked up the way they might, and you end up the consignor ends up suffering. And generally, it's because the auction house just gets behind, or they're a little lazy. I don't know what it is, but if you're consigning to an auction house, sort of check their track record on when they post their auctions. It is a crucial part of getting the right price for your things if you're selling. If you're buying, do the opposite. Look at sales that just posted, most recently listed. And if you on Live Auctioneers, you can do it by clicking the button. Obviously, there's a sort button. You can say most recently listed. And if you see something that was just recently listed and the sale is in 6 or 7 days, there's a pretty good chance you're going to get a good buy. It's a pretty good chance of it, especially if you go in and, as we say, carpet bomb the sale. Just leave bids. The first step is to leave a bid, and if you can, do it through the auctioneer's website. You'll save some money and cover often a big chunk of your shipping expenses. And if you spend enough money, you'll cover the entire shipping. So keep that in mind. Anyway, the Akiba sale did really well, and this was that beautiful Tibetan gilt bronze deity. Now, this was a big piece. You may recall it measured 43 inches tall. Just the figure was 43 inches, excuse me. With its lotus base, it was 50 inches tall. So it was 2.5 feet tall, basically. It was a big copper bronze piece, very nice condition, and it was estimated at 15 to 45,000. And I thought the estimates on some of the pieces were pretty ambitious, but apparently they had fairly high estimates. And I have said before, this can happen. You'll see an auction with high estimates. Don't automatically assume they have high reserves. All right, because a number of the lots in this sale sold well under their low estimates because I think they were just too high in a few places. But that's the way it's done. They're sort of aspirational, I suppose. But this sold very well. This brought 35 plus the premium, or around $45,000 roughly. And interestingly, it was displayed in the photographs on this stand, this beautiful Anglo-Indian stand that was estimated at $1,800 to $3,200. And it ended up selling for $6,000 plus the premium, so around $7,800 roughly for it. Now, it may be that the person that bought the bronze, or bought the previous figure, the gilt copper figure, wanted the stand that had been under it in the photograph. So somebody may have paid a little bit more of a competitive price to get it. But I think this is a great stand. I don't think it was an overpayment. This is a big stand. And the big stands like this are hard to come by, and I thought this was a particularly nice one. Very, very nice. And then over to this, what's this? This was the ivory miniature of the Taj Mahal. And we talked about this a few weeks ago for one reason. You see these miniatures around fairly often. They're not common, but they do turn up. And this was a particularly nice interior view, which you occasionally do see, in this beautifully done Indian frame, all hand carved, very reminiscent of that stand we just looked at. If you look at the carving on here with the scrolling vines, and you look at the vines here, it's sort of very much in the Indian taste. And what was unusual about this was its size. This was a very big one. You generally don't see them this big. Here's a good shot of the carving. It's very, very nice. Sort of commercial carving, but that's how they did them. And here's the interior. This is beautiful paintwork, beautiful gilt, beautiful outlining. Everything was very meticulous on it, but it was very large for one of these. This one measures 18 by 14 inches, the overall size. That's a very large one of these, exceptionally large. Usually the smaller ones sell for $300 or $400. This one was much, much better and ended up going for around, what does that come out to? About $2,600, $2,500 roughly for the lot. But it was very, very nicely done. And then hopping along over to the next lot is this. This was the sale down at Nadeau's that we talked about. Nadeau's in Connecticut had their sale they had some very nice porcelain from the collection of Geraldine Rockefeller Dodge. and a well-known socialite and all that. And the family had been collecting. The Rockefeller family, of course, is legendary collectors. But she had all these interesting monochromes that somebody in the family had bought. Maybe she had bought or somebody had left to her. And I talked about them a bit because I just like the aesthetic of these so much. And there were a number of them in this sale, and they all looked perfectly fine. These were not copies, and I think the prices were very reasonable. I don't think they went over the top. I don't think they gave them away, but I think that this was all very buyable, very attractive material. In this case, you had this very nice 18th century crackleware bowl with a sort of soft celadon ground on it, $550 plus the premium, or around, call it about $700. And then there was this one. This was an awfully nice example with cafe glaze, a nice heavy crackle on it, beautifully done. This was an awfully pretty piece. And I think this went under the money. I think this may have been one of the bargains of the day. This is a nice 18th century example. It had a really good look to it all the way around. Very thickly potted, very strong crackle, very good color. The color looks to be all right. As far as the camera sometimes can make these pieces look richer or darker than they naturally are. But I don't think so by examining the color around the base, because that looks very, very much well balanced in color. And this is a nice 18th century example. It looked absolutely fine, and I think somebody got a great buy on it. It measured 5 inches in diameter, sort of the standard size, and it ended up going for $1,100 plus the premium. And that to me seems like so it was around $1,500, roughly $1,400. I think that was a very good trade. Whoever got that got a great piece. And then they had this little rust glazed mini double gourds. And we've seen so many times how double gourd pieces do really well, or miniature double gourds, miniature porcelains in general, vases under 6 inches. And this one measured 4 inches in height. And they thought it was possibly Qianlong period. It's an late 18th century one, judging by the bottom and the color and the shape. They did double gourds later, but the proportions were shifted. On the 20th century ones, the upper section is sometimes almost as big as the lower section, which it shouldn't be on the earlier examples. They typically are smaller proportionally in a different shape. But this was a very nice example, sold for $1,300 plus the premium. That wasn't a surprise at all. I thought the estimates were all sort of universally, very modest. And this was a heck of a nice piece. So it went out the door at about $1,800, $1,900. All right. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was this. This was another sale. This was a circa 1500 Ming charger that was sold out in California, I believe, at Andrew Jones in LA. And I pointed it out a couple of weeks ago because it is almost identical in style and decoration to a number of the pieces that sold at the Sykes sale a few weeks ago. You may remember they had all those Ming pieces, and they had several chargers in this size. You can go and check, and they all sold for anywhere from $1,700 to $4,000 a piece. And I pointed this out to a couple of people. I said, this is the same thing, and it may come up as a bargain. Well, somebody got a bargain on it. And that's great. It went for $550 plus the premium, or around around $800 roughly, which is about half to 1/3 of what similar pieces brought at the Casa Sykes sale. And it wasn't that the Casa Sykes sales brought too much. It's just that nobody was paying attention to this because it was just one piece in one sale. And it wasn't, I don't believe this auction was, it was on for about 3 weeks, but it didn't pick up that many bidders. It picked up about 20 bidders, and nobody chased it. I don't know why, but somebody got a great buy. This was a very, very good buy. This was a really good buy for this plate. This had the conch shell in the middle. Excuse my voice today. The conch shell in the center, and then these floral cartouches floating around it on top of a lattice pattern. It's very attractive, nice looking. Is the detail of it and so forth. And it's got a little firing gap in the glaze, which is typical. This is the back of it. This is what it should look like. Nice, strong iron oxide line running around the outside. Beautiful example. Very, very nice. And then hopping along over to this. This was the China trade painting that was at the Tremont auction up here in Massachusetts on the 26th. I like this a lot. I thought this was a wonderful little picture. It was quite small, 4 by 7 inches was the site size of the watercolor, and the overall size was 7 by 8 inches. Very nicely done. It was estimated at 500 to 700, which was pretty close, and it ended up going for a little over that, coming in at around $820 or so with the buyer's premium, roughly, or no, excuse me, about 900 with the buyer's premium. Excuse me. But anyway, this was a nice example, and it was in this very attractive sort of beveled, ebonized wood frame. I like that. I like the look of that. It had a very good feeling to it. Somebody got a nice China trade painting. And as I've said, China trade paintings seem to be getting some traction. A few years ago, China trade paintings like this were selling for $200 or $300. And suddenly they've popped up a bit. And they may be getting bought increasingly by folks over in China too, because there's a developing appreciation for China trade porcelain over in Hong Kong, especially, and on the mainland. There was that great English sale that the English auction house ran in London, ran in Hong Kong. I think they ran it in Hong Kong last year or earlier this year, and the Chinese domestic buyers showed up and bought a lot of it. So there you go. And then this is coming up at Dore and Reese in Somerset in the United Kingdom. They've got a sale on the 10th, and they've got some very nice kosometsuki sweetmeat dishes from the Chanchi period that were made for the Japanese market. These are awfully nice. And fairly rare. These are recumbent horses, and you only see these really in Europe. These don't turn up too often in America. They're estimated at 2,000 to 3,000 pounds. The 1,600-pound opening bid. These are not big pieces. These are not huge items. They're typically around 6 or 8 inches long. This one is 17.5 centimeters, so about 7 inches, a little over 7 inches in length, which is about the right size for them. They have this one, and I believe there's these. There's one that's a conch shell and then a fan shell one, also Chanchi. I like the conch shell though. It's got a crayfish in the middle of it. These are also very nice and quite rare. These are quite rare pieces made in this form. And these were made typically for the Japanese market during the end of the Ming Dynasty. And these are estimated at, again, 2,000 to 3,000 with a 1,600-pound opening bid. They should get there. These are nice. If you're an Arita collector, if you're a Japanese blue and white market collector, that sort of thing, and you like pieces, the Chanchi wares for the Japanese market, you may want to chase these. These are kind of hard to come by. And then hopping along over to Doyle's, they've got a sale that sort of snuck up on us on the 6th of November, next week. And in it, I know there are a number of you out there that like celadons. And I actually mentioned this also, this particular plate on the Patreon video we did this week for the subscribers over there. And I mentioned this also, and I thought it would be good to mention it here again. This is a nice barb-rimmed Ming celadon charger. It's about 13 inches in diameter, and it looks like the surface is in good condition. Often you'll find these because the color is good also, but the potting of this piece is very nice. It's awfully nice. But the only thing you want to find out is the center section here with the incised floral decorations here. Is the glaze worn? Because I've had many of these over the years, and some of them are absolutely great and perfect. They have nice thick glaze there, and some of them are worn through. And sometimes you can't see the wear from the head-on shot. You've got to get sort of an angle shot to see if this area is worn down. It doesn't look to be. I don't see a big shift in color. But if this isn't worn, this is a really nice plate. The back of it looks fine. It's a charger technically. It dates to probably around 1450 to 1500. A nice glazed foot on it. It's got that iron oxide circle from the firing sitting on its firing ring. But this is a beautiful piece and a nice heavy stout potting on it. I like that a lot. And the estimate's very reasonable, $1,000 to $1,500. And the only thing in the description says of typical form with a barbed rim, but I think it looks like it's a good bit better than typical. I really think so. I think this is a very nice example. It's got a few watchers, so we'll see how it does. But if you've been looking for one, this is a good one. It's a good one. If the center is not worn. If the center is worn, you may want to rethink it. All right, and then over to this, also in the same sale, is this very nice octagonal Kangxi period dish. It's a well-known pattern. It's sort of a famous pattern on these Kangxi wares. on the boy on the upper railing here, and with all the precious objects and this very double border with this sort of ogival pattern running around it, and then these lappet almost look like dental moldings running around the outside, but nice color, and it's probably about 10 inches, I would guess. Oh, it's a big one, 15 inches. Oh, I didn't check it before. This is really big. That's huge for one of these. Here's the back of it. Is there any damage to this? Doesn't look it. Get a condition report on this. I didn't realize. I thought this was a 8 or 9 or 10 inch one. I didn't think it was this big. It belonged to Sir Kenlin Digby, whoever he was. But it's 15 inches. This should do quite well. This is a big plate. The big one, 15 inches. The estimate is $1,500 to $2,500. I think that's pretty reasonable given its size. This will be a fairly heavy plate for its size. It's got only 6 people watching it. You might have a shot at it at a reasonable price. All right, and then over to this. This is coming up at Tumian and Company. This auction just popped up. They're having a general sale, but they have a few China trade pieces in it. One of them is this very nice export punch bowl. It's not a big one, but it's a very well-known pattern. It's one you've all seen many times, but it was a very popular pattern during the 1780s and 90s toward the second half of the Qianlong era. On export wares, but this one looks like it's in good shape. The gilding up here looks fine. All the fill-in borders look good. I don't see any chips in it. You want to always check punch bowls for hairlines because they do tend to get them. It doesn't say hand-painted porcelain. That's all it says. So you want to get a condition report on this. The sale is on the 13th at Tumian and Company. It's got a very reasonable estimate, $600 to $800, $50 opening bid. But do check and make sure it's not restored or have any hairlines in it. That's the only issue with punch bowls. Oh, that you always want to check. You can tell if it has wear on it, but you can't always tell if it's been repaired or it's got a hairline that they didn't catch in the photograph for whatever reason. All right, now over to this Brunk's. Brunk's has been getting very busy lately, which is good to see because they run great auctions. They have nice things. They were set back a good bit last year, of course, during hurricane season when it swept through Asheville, North Carolina, and they were shut down. And I understand they were doing what they could for their employees and the community during that time. So they weren't doing much for almost, I think, for a month or so. They had to postpone, I remember, a very good sale. But it's a good auction house. They do a good job there. And coming up on the 13th of November, they're having an American furniture sale. Most of it's American furniture, but there's some awfully nice pieces of armorial ware in here. And here it is. There's several very nice pieces. We'll go through a couple of them just to show you. Some of the pieces came from Eleanor Gordon, the famous dealer for many decades. She was sort of the grand. Those of you who didn't know Eleanor, she was very nice. I've mentioned her before. She used to do all the big shows. She came out of Villanova, Pennsylvania, as I recall, where she lived, and she was on the show circuit selling the best of the best to high-end collectors, museums, institutions, that sort of business for many, many years. She was a very nice lady. I met her a number of times. She was awfully nice. But in this sale also, before we get into that, is this. If you're an American furniture buyer, there are a number of pieces going through Brunk's. There's one the day before as well. The pieces that have a provenance back to Israel Sack and Company when they were in business. And Israel Sack was the premier American furniture dealer, antique furniture dealer, above all else. And there's not many businesses where you can say that, but they really were. They set the pace for the American furniture industry for 70 years, 80 years, forever. They started in Boston, ended up in New York, and handled the best of the best. They published books, and it was a father and then son business, and then eventually they closed because they had nobody left to run it. But at any rate, this is something that went through there, and this is a very, very fine. This was sold by them. It's been exhibited. It's a well-known. It's been published and all that business. Extremely nice tambour, federal period inlaid desk. And it's a tambour, which means these, whoops, hold on a second. There, which means this upper section here, these panels here, those are little tiny slits of wood, and they hinge together, and you open them, and they curl up They scroll up basically on the ends. They're very complicated to make, very expensive to have made. But the one thing that this desk has that makes it really, really special, and I'm going to get to it in a second because they show a detail shot of it just for people that miss things. The American Eagle on the prospect door in the middle. You do not see American Eagles on American furniture very often, even during the federal period. But here it is. And that makes this it's got the eagle on it. Not to make a pun, but it makes this a very rare bird. This is a very, very finely done piece of furniture. It's a Boston cabinet piece, probably made by the Seymour family, John and Thomas Seymour. It's a very amazing piece of furniture. The only time you see American federal furniture of this quality really is either if it came out of Boston or Salem. Those were the two big towns where they produced the very, very, very high-end, finest federal furniture. And in Salem, you had the McIntyres and people like that. In Boston, you had the Seymours. And the Seymours and the McIntyre, all these furniture guys, they all sort of knew each other. And Salem is very close to Boston. It's only 14 miles away. And you'll find a fair bit of this stuff, not only in old houses on Beacon Hill back in the day, but you would also find pieces made by the Seymours in Salem. And this is a very nice example. And if you've ever wanted to own a great piece of American furniture, this is one of them. It's estimated at $15,000 to $25,000 with a $7,500 opening bid. Now they have the original receipt from Israel Sack, and I'm going to bet they paid probably double or triple the high estimate on this piece because of that American Eagle and the Seymour attribution for the workshop, because they always attribute it. They can never say, unless they have documented proof, they can't say definitively that it's by any particular workshop some of the time. But in this case, there was nobody in Boston that made furniture like this, of this quality, other than the Seymours. All right, and then on to this very, very nice armorial punch bowl with the arms of Heath on it. That's one of the most desirable arms you could get on export porcelain. This piece was originally sold by Eleanor Gordon to the current owner, I would assume. It measures 13 inches in diameter. It's got the original receipt. Let me see here. Provenance, Eleanor Gordon, Villanova, Pennsylvania, April 17, 2001, accompanied by the receipt, the collection of Karen Shackelford Moore of Baltimore, Maryland. And it's in David Sanctuary Howard's book, Volume 1, page 625. The estimate, $2,500 to $3,500, $1,300 opening bid. But it's a heck of a rarity. And then other things of the sales is, I throw this in because I thought this was such a pretty rug. I like rugs. We're going to talk about some rugs in a few minutes, and then get back to some porcelain. But this is a really lovely Heriz carpet. It's a 19th century Heriz, and it's got a very unusual yellow ground in the corner spandrels here and here in this very warm rust field, and then light blue. The color combinations on here are very successful. This is a very, very, very pretty rug, and it looks like it's in quite good condition. If you've been looking for a really, really pretty Heriz carpet from the 19th century with great color, this has good color all over it, and the pile looks good. The pile looks pretty good. There's the back of it. Pretty typical late 19th century weave. Somebody has put a blanket stitch across the end here to keep the ends from coming off, which is a good sign to see. When you see things like this, you know the rug has been cared for. Somebody that owned this rug took the time to have that done to it. All right, so to keep it in beautiful condition, and it looks quite clean on top of it. It's estimated at just $3,000 to $5,000, and this is a big rug. It's 8 foot 11 by 11 feet. This is a room-sized rug. So if you've been looking for a great rug, you might want to think about this. And I don't think the estimate's at all out of line. I think it's a very nice carpet and warm a room up beautifully. And then we get over to the Rippon Boswell sale over in Germany. It's taking place on the 29th of this month, or this coming month, rather, of November, is this. They've got some great rugs. Rippon Boswell has a long, long, long history of being one of the finest rug auctioneers in the world, certainly on a par with any of the major auction houses. They have a sterling reputation. They are rug guys. And they run several sales a year still. They've been around since, I don't know, the 60s, 70s. And they've been around a long time. They've been around forever. But they're known for handling important rugs from of very early from very early periods from major collectors, institutions, and so forth. If you're a big institution in Europe and you've got rugs and carpets you're going to sell them at Rippon Boswell's. That's where they take the stuff because they are connected to all the best collectors, all the best long-term collectors and wealthy collectors. All right, and in the sale is this. This is a very, very nice Ningxia Palace rug. Beautifully done. I haven't looked at the date, how they dated it. It looks like an early to mid 19th century carpet to me. The color is really, really good, and it's in beautiful condition. And I don't know if the ground is, but this ground area in here may be a metallic weave. I'm not sure. I don't know if they say whether it is or it's not in the thing and in the description. But they're dating it to mid 19th century, 154 centimeters by 253 centimeters. So that's about 5 by 8 feet. It's a good sized rug. Knotted in silk and design stands out in relief against a field of brocaded. Yep. Okay. It does have brocaded gold thread. That's why. All right. So when you look at this rug, come back to it just for a second, not to bore everybody to death, but they would use this. In other words, this will be like a cameo effect where the colored wools are the blues and the browns. And this area is low relief done in gold metallic thread. All right, this isn't a rug you put in an area you're going to walk in very often. This is a rug maybe you hang on a wall like a painting. It's a beautiful, beautiful carpet. I don't think it doesn't look like it's hardly ever been walked on because the metallic threads would not like it unless you walk on it each time completely barefoot. But it's a great collector's rug. 18 to $24,000 estimate, for pound estimate or euro estimate rather. 15,000 euros starting price. But it's a very fine, very rare example. And then hopping along back over, now we're going to get back to the Brunk sale a little bit more here. Hold on. Did I lose it? Where'd it go? Oh, is this very nice mug, Wickstead or the Hodge monogram on this. And I wanted to mention this if you're into China trade, early China trade, export wares and mugs, you might want to look at this. This is a very good one. Beautiful colors, rich colors all the way around, meticulously painted. A very, very fine example, period. All right. I forgot to mention this earlier when we were talking about the Brunk sale. $800 to $1,200 estimate, $400 starting price. Did this come from Eleanor Gordon as well? I wonder. Philip Sewell. Okay, well, Philip Sewell in Fredericksburg, Virginia. He was another major dealer. He had sold it. So there you are. Always good provenance. And then let's hop along back in here to this little rug section again. There's a bunch of Turkmen rugs in here. If you're a Turkmen rug buyer, Central Asia, these are all Central Asian rugs. There's some very rare ones in here. There's a couple of Salors. There's some Eagle Group pieces. If you collect, you know what those are. Lots of Yomud or Shari pieces and so forth. Some techie carpets, and there's some other very, very pretty rugs. This is a very nice Kislayak Ensi prayer rug. There's this. This is a very fine Bijar Kelly rug. These tend to be quite long proportionally to their width, but this is a really fine one, and this is a beautifully done, sort of an ivory, almost the color of nephrite mutton fat jade. It's that color. It's a beautiful color with these big pendants on it, classic Bijar design, but very finely done. And you'll notice this white outer border, and that tells you right away this rug has not been lost any of its edges or anything. Because sometimes what they do with these big Bijars is if that outer, they sometimes have these and those areas get worn and damaged over time, they will trim this outer border off and make this the outer border. And when you look at the rug initially, you won't know it's lost about 2 inches off the side and off the ends. They just trim it right to that edge, and then they overcast that, and it looks like a complete rug, and it's actually been cut down. It's not always the case, but it often is. All right, and this is a nice one. And it measures, it's fairly large. It's 234 centimeters by 376 centimeters. So it's about 7 feet wide, roughly, and around about 9 feet three. I'm having brain freeze. Hold on. 376 divided by 3 times 9, about 9 feet long, roughly, right? Something like that. No, no. Hold on a second. Excuse me, about 13 feet long. Okay, there we go. That makes more sense. But at any rate, it's a gorgeous carpet. And if you want to chase this down, it's going to be I think the estimate's pretty reasonable: 4,700 to 5,100 euros. That's pretty fair for this. This is a late 19th century rug, judging by the surface. Just says second half of the 19th century. This is a heck of a buy if you can get it for that price. That's very, very reasonable. Come to think of it. All right. And then there were pieces like this. This is an Eagle Group tent bag. Eagle Group was a sub-tribe of the Yomuts. I won't get into it. There's been this whole thing over the last 20 years where they've subdivided all the little subgroups of the different Turkmen tribes into all these little other groups that they've sort of come up with names for and written books. And this one's cotton wefted and that one's wool warped and it's this and that and there's this whole it's a little excessive, but at any rate, I guess it's for the history books. But there's this very nice large tent bag. This is a beautiful example, very meticulously done, very precisely done. And remember, we always have to keep in mind, these are all done from memory. They weren't working off of, graph paper when they designed this. It was all pure memory. And this is a 19th century bag, early 19th century, but circa 1800, they're saying. It's about right. I was going to say 1820s or something like that. It's a very early bag. It's in such beautiful shape, though. God, it's perfect. 10 to 14,000 euros, 8,000 euro opening bid. A heck of a nice thing. All righty. And then hopping along over, if you're on the Patreon thing, you've already seen it. We did the watch page video this past week and covered a bunch of things. It was a little long this week. I'm sorry about that. It was 35 minutes. Normally they're 15 or 20, but there was a lot to talk about. But we've added the Olympia auction and the Chiswick sale over here. We've linked it into the site from theirs. And if you're looking for something mischief to get into over in the EU, check out the Olympia and the Chiswick sale. They have some awfully nice pieces, some very good blue and white pieces in this sale, as you can see. Some good bronzes, lots of bronzes. Some very nice early celadons, some swung bowls from Famille Rose. You can see it's a good looking sale. Lots of mirrors with jade insets in them, brush pots, carved wood, carved jades, archer rings, on and on and on. And this, I mentioned this in the Patreon video the other day, is this. We talked about a few weeks ago. Remember, there was that sections of wallpaper that came up down in, I think it was in Florida. They did very well, not surprisingly. Well, here's another group of them, and these are 18th century wallpaper, Qianlong period. Very, very nice. They're dating them 1750 to 1790, which looks about right. They're estimated at just $4,000 to $6,000. They should do much better than that, as we all know. But these are some nice panels. There's 7 of them here, and they measure 93 centimeters in width. They're about 3 feet wide each. So each panel is 3 feet wide and is around 246 or 7, 3 times 7, about 6 feet in length, six or so foot in length. So these are big panels that look great hanging. So there's something worth chasing. And there's all kinds of Famille Rose, all this stuff. And that's just them. And then you come over here to Chiswick's, and they've got also a great looking sale with a bunch of good things, very different flavor in many of the lots. Some nice Kangxi pieces, nice brush pots, Dewa, stem cups, transitional period, Blanc de Chine, export armorial wares, Famille Rose export wares here, European scenes on them, Clair de Lune water brush washers, a very nice looking hanging tapestry here. This is a good bit of silk. It looks quite excellent, actually. What's the estimate on this? 2,000 to 4,000. It's a big panel, though. Good Lord, that's a honking big panel. 80. Yeah, it's 2.5, 3 feet high and about 5 or so feet in length. So it's a nice big hanging piece. So you can look into that. And what else is in here? Again, you've got, this is the Medellis collection. There's some very nice small bits in here. Go through this carefully. There's some good pieces in there. And then you have this, the jades. They have a section for jades. Some good examples. There's some textiles, lots of robes, books and works on paper, and so on. So there's a lot to look at out there. And there are other sales coming up. There's a couple that haven't even posted yet. And we're trying to get the video out for the, who is it? William Wallace, rather, has a Japanese sale coming, and we're going to do a video on that, hopefully to get that out in the next couple of days. I've been meaning to get to it. We had so many other things to do. But it's a good-looking sale, and you don't see many Japanese-only sales that often anymore. And they have some very nice pieces, and particularly porcelain. So check that out. All right, and that sort of covers it for the week. There's so much going on. I could go on. If I pulled up everything that was on my results page, I'd be here for 3 hours. So much has happened and so much is coming along, which is exciting. And it's sort of what we talked about during the summer when it was so quiet and there wasn't much of anything going on. And now there's that flood that we said could come. It has come. And everybody and his brothers got, so far that we're looking at things that look pretty good. Now, the flood of fakes on live auctioneers is still as bad as it's ever been. Keep that in mind. They actually seem to be increasing, if that's even possible. So be very, very careful. Stick to reputable auction houses. If you belong to Patreon or the global pages, use the report card. We just updated it. We added about 20 new auction houses onto it. None of them were any good, unfortunately, but at least we threw a thing in there. And if you're buying something and you have subscribed to Patreon or you do have the global pages, check the report card before you place a bid, because I've had 4 cases in the last month where people bought things they didn't bother checking before they placed the bid, and all of them ended up buying things that were misrepresented, either not nearly as old as they were told or are just point blank copies. And one of them was through an auction house that I've spoken about many, many times. It said never buy anything from these people ever. There are a lot of them out there. There's I think right now there's over 30 auction houses that have void always warnings on them. That's how many auction houses there are doing this. So just please keep it in mind. Stick to the ones they're reputable, the ones that have been around, the real auction houses, the people that sell legitimate things. The Stair Galleries, the Freeman Hyman, Doyle's, Malay Brothers gets good things. There's a number of them. Rogan in Boston gets good things. There's a number of them around that get good things that you could rely on, and you don't have to be worrying on tenterhooks, wondering if the piece you bought and are having shipped is what they claim it was. It's a terrible way to buy. Buy from people that you can trust. Buy people you don't have to worry about. Just to save yourself the headache and the heartache and the expense. Good Lord. Anyway, that's all I have to say on that. Have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy Halloween with your kids this weekend, or the grandkids, or whatever's going on in your neighborhood. Make sure to leave lights on so it's safe out there for the kids walking around. Remember, they can't see anything when they've got their costumes on. We don't want them falling down in the driveway. All right. Have a wonderful week. See you next time, and we'll get some other videos out on some of the upcoming sales. All righty. Bye-bye. And subscribe if you haven't here so far on YouTube. We'd love to see the new subscribers. Okay. Bye-bye.